The meatloaf sat on my plate like a brick, getting colder by the minute while my wife Natalie scrolled through her phone for the third time since we'd sat down. Her manicured fingers tapped against the screen with that particular rhythm that meant she was texting someone who wasn't me. "Good day at the office?" I asked, cutting into the meat with more force than necessary. She replied without looking up. "I'm Ethan Price, 36 years old, and I've been married to this woman for 8 years. I run a small IT consulting firm here in Millbrook, Connecticut, fixing other people's digital problems while apparently being blind to the analog ones in my own house." The irony wasn't lost on me, even then. Our dining room had always felt too formal for just the two of us. Natalie had insisted on the mahogany table that seated 8, the crystal chandelier that cast everything in harsh light, the china cabinet filled with wedding gifts we'd never used. Now it felt like a courtroom, with me as both defendant and judge. "Natalie." She looked up, her green eyes distant. Once, those eyes had made my chest tight with want. Tonight, they looked right through me like I was furniture. "I saw Eric today," she said, setting her phone face down on the table. "Eric Dalton, her high school boyfriend, the one who'd knocked her up senior year before she miscarried, the one who'd married someone else 6 months after graduation, the one who'd gotten divorced last spring, according to the town gossip network that ran more efficiently than our municipal water system." "Oh?" I kept my voice level, though something cold was already spreading through my chest. "He looks good. Really good." She picked up her wine glass, swirled the Pinot Grigio I'd opened to celebrate landing a new client. "He's got his own garage now, 3 employees. He's doing well for himself." I nodded, chewing mechanically. The meatloaf tasted like cardboard, but then again, everything Natalie cooked lately tasted like an afterthought. We talked for a while, about old times, about how things used to be. Her voice had that dreamy quality it got when she'd had too much wine, except she'd barely touched her glass. "That's nice," I said. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing me for the first time in months, maybe years. "I think I'm falling for him again." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. I set down my fork and leaned back in my chair, studying her face. She looked nervous but defiant, like a teenager who just confessed to crashing Dad's car. "I see," I said. "That's it? That's all you're going to say?" I dabbed my mouth with the cloth napkin, bought it some time to think. 8 years of marriage, and she drops this bomb over dinner like she's commenting on the weather. "What would you like me to say, Natalie?" "I don't know. Something. Anything. Fight for me, maybe." I almost laughed. Fight for her. The woman who'd been emotionally checked out of our marriage for the better part of 2 years? Who spent more time at her freelance graphic design studio than at home? Who hadn't initiated physical contact with me since Christmas? "I won't stand in your way," I said finally. The color drained from her face. "What?" "If you want to be with Eric, then be with Eric. I'm not going to beg you to stay married to me." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "Just like that?" "Just like that." "But I thought you'd—" She fumbled for words, her composure cracking. "You thought I'd what? Make a scene? Cry? Throw things?" I stood up, collecting my plate. "Sorry to disappoint you." "Ethan, wait. I'm going to clean up. You should probably call Eric. Let him know he won." I walked to the kitchen, scraped my barely touched dinner into the garbage disposal, and listened to her chair scrape against the hardwood floor. The front door slammed 30 seconds later. Standing at the sink, I finally allowed myself to feel it. The rage, the humiliation, the bone-deep exhaustion of loving someone who'd stopped loving you back so gradually you didn't notice until it was too late. But underneath all of that was something else, something sharper and more focused. Relief. Because now I knew exactly where I stood, and more importantly, I knew what I was going to do about it. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Rachel Lynn's number. Rachel, my childhood friend who'd moved back to town last year to run her late aunt's bed and breakfast by the lake. Rachel, who'd always been able to make me laugh even when everything was falling apart. "Hey, stranger," she answered on the second ring. "Are you free for dinner tomorrow night?" A pause. "Everything okay?" Define okay. "Oh boy, yeah, I'm free. Want to talk about it?" "Tomorrow," I said. "Thanks, Rachel." "Anytime, Ethan. You know that." I hung up and looked around the kitchen. Everything was exactly as Natalie had left it. Dirty pans in the sink, ingredients scattered across the counter, the general chaos of someone who cooked without cleaning as they went. For the first time in months, I smiled. Rachel's cottage sat on the north shore of Millbrook Lake, a cozy 2-story colonial painted yellow with white trim. She'd inherited it from her aunt, along with the bed and breakfast business, though she'd converted the main house back to a private residence and used the guest cottage for visitors. I pulled into her gravel driveway at 7 sharp, carrying a bottle of wine and what felt like the weight of my collapsed marriage. The October air was crisp, full of wood smoke and fading leaves. Through her kitchen window, I could see Rachel moving around, her long black hair pulled back in a ponytail. She opened the door before I could knock, wearing jeans and a Cornell sweatshirt that had seen better days. "You look terrible," she said, taking the wine. "Thanks. That's exactly what a man wants to hear." I meant it in a caring way. She stepped aside to let me in. Like, terrible in a my world just imploded way, not a you need a shower way. The cottage smelled like garlic and herbs. Rachel had always been a better cook than Natalie, though I'd never said so out loud. We'd grown up 3 houses apart, spent summers catching frogs in Miller's Creek and winters building snow forts that turned into epic battles with the neighborhood kids. "So," she said, handing me a beer, "what did she do?" "What makes you think she did something?" "Because I've known you for 28 years, and you only get that look when someone's betrayed you. Last time I saw it was when Tommy Morrison told everyone you wet yourself at summer camp. I was 8, and you plotted revenge for 3 weeks. Tommy deserved what he got." Ants in his sleeping bag was inspired. She sat across from me at her kitchen table. "Talk." I told her everything. The dinner conversation, Natalie's confession, my response. Rachel listened without interrupting, her dark eyes serious. "Eric Dalton," she said when I finished. "Wasn't he the one who used to pull girls' hair and call it flirting?" "That's him." And now Natalie wants to relive her teenage glory days with Captain Charming. Apparently. Rachel was quiet for a moment, peeling the label off her beer bottle. "How do you feel?" "Honestly, relieved and pissed off, but mostly relieved." "Good. You should be." We ate dinner on her back porch, watching the sun set over the lake. Rachel had made chicken marsala with roasted vegetables, and we talked about everything except my marriage. Her bed and breakfast was doing well, booked solid through the holidays. My business was growing too, mostly word-of-mouth referrals from satisfied clients. "Remember when we used to skip stones out there?" Rachel asked, pointing toward the lake. "You always won." "Still would. Prove it." We walked down to her private dock, found a handful of flat stones on the shore. Rachel's first throw skipped 7 times before disappearing into the darkness. "Show off," I said. "Your turn." I wound up and let fly. 4 skips. "Pathetic," she said, but she was smiling. We stood there in comfortable silence, listening to the water lap against the dock. Rachel had always been easy to be around, even when we were kids. No drama, no games, no hidden agendas. "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you're planning, be careful." I looked at her. "What makes you think I'm planning something?" "Because you're you, and because that look is back." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Text message from Lucy Chen, Natalie's best friend and the town's unofficial gossip coordinator. "Heard about dinner. Natalie's not okay. Just saying." I showed Rachel the message. "Word travels fast," she said. "Lucy's like a human Twitter feed. Half the town probably knows by now." "Good. Good?" Rachel turned to face me, her expression serious. "If Natalie wants to play games, she should know the rules. And rule number 1 is that actions have consequences." I studied her face in the moonlight. "You never liked her." "I liked her fine when she made you happy. When she stopped doing that..." Rachel shrugged. "I'm loyal to my friends. Sometimes that means not liking their wives." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Natalie. "We need to talk." I showed Rachel the message. "You going to answer?" "Eventually." I put the phone back in my pocket. "But not tonight." "Want to stay for coffee?" I made apple pie. "Homemade?" "Is there any other kind?" We went back inside, and Rachel cut generous slices of pie while I made coffee in her ancient percolator. It felt domestic and comfortable in a way my own kitchen never had. "This is really good," I said after the first bite. "My aunt's recipe. She used to make one every Sunday after church. I remember, she always gave me an extra slice." "She liked you. Said you were the only one of the neighborhood kids who actually listened when adults talked." "Still do." "I know." Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's what makes you a good man, Ethan." Her touch was warm, familiar. For just a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like if things were different. If I'd married Rachel instead of Natalie. If I'd chosen the girl who laughed at my jokes over the one who looked good in a dress. But that was dangerous thinking, and I pulled my hand away. "I should go. Early day tomorrow." "Of course." If she was disappointed, she didn't show it. "Thanks for dinner. Thanks for coming to dinner." "Thanks for listening." She walked me to the door, stood on the porch while I got in my truck. Ethan? Yeah? Whatever happens, you don't have to go through it alone. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and drove home to my empty house. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Lucy's social media machine had been working overtime. The first call was from my business partner, Tom Bradley. Tom was a former Marine who'd helped me start the consulting firm 3 years ago. He handled the technical side while I managed clients and strategy. Dude, what the hell? He said when I called him back. Good morning to you too. Lucy posted some cryptic stuff about you and Natalie last night. Then this morning she's posting pictures of you and Rachel at dinner. The comments are going crazy. I opened Instagram on my phone, found Lucy's account. Sure enough, there was a blurry photo of Rachel and me on her porch, heads close together over dinner. The caption read, "Some people move on fast, just saying." Millbrook drama. Shuck, Team Natalie. The comments were exactly what you'd expect from a small town with too much time on its hands. This is why I hate social media, I told Tom. It gets worse. Check her story. I clicked through to Lucy's story. More photos, these ones showing Rachel and me walking to the dock, standing close together by the water. The timestamp showed they'd been taken around 9:30 last night. She was watching us? Looks like it. Natalie must have sent her. I scrolled through the comments again. Most were from people I barely knew, offering opinions on my marriage that nobody had asked for. But a few were from friends, people I'd considered allies. Mike Santos from the gym. Always thought Ethan was a stand-up guy. Guess you never really know people. Jennifer Walsh, whose computer I'd fixed last month. Poor Natalie, she deserves better. Dave Murphy, who'd been in my wedding. Moving on before the divorce papers are even filed? Classy. You still there? Tom asked. Yeah, just reading the reviews of my character. Screw them. Half these people have been divorced twice. Doesn't matter. Perception is reality in a town this size. So what's the plan? That was Tom. Always ready for a fight, always assuming there was a plan. In this case, he was right. Meet me at the office in an hour. We need to talk. I showered, dressed, and drove downtown to our small office above Peterson's Hardware. Tom was already there, coffee brewing, laptop open. Okay, he said. Lay it on me. I told him everything. The dinner conversation, my evening with Rachel, the social media ambush. So Natalie drops the bomb, you handle it like a gentleman, and now you're the bad guy? That's about the size of it. Tom leaned back in his chair, studying me. What aren't you telling me? What do you mean? I mean, you're too calm. The Ethan I know would be pissed off about this character assassination. Instead, you look like you're planning something. He was right. I was planning something, but first I needed more information. Can you do me a favor? Run a background check on Eric Dalton. Natalie's ex? Current boyfriend, apparently. Tom's fingers were already flying over the keyboard. What am I looking for? Anything interesting. Criminal record, financial problems, business disputes, the usual. This is about revenge. This is about information. Same thing in your case. Tom pulled up several windows on his screen. Eric James Dalton, age 36, owns Dalton Automotive on Route 7. Divorced from Susan Dalton last year. 2 kids. No criminal record, but... He paused, reading. But what? 3 complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau in the past year. Customers claiming he overcharged for unnecessary work, and he's behind on his business loan payments. How behind? 4 months. Banks threatening foreclosure. Interesting. Eric wasn't quite the success story Natalie thought he was. Anything else? His ex-wife filed a restraining order last December. Claims he was harassing her, showing up at her work, calling at all hours. Stalking. Looks like it. Order expired in June, wasn't renewed. My phone rang. Rachel. You need to see Lucy's latest post, she said without preamble. I opened Instagram again. Lucy had posted a video, apparently taken from her car outside Rachel's cottage. The audio was muffled, but you could clearly see Rachel and me holding hands across her kitchen table. The caption read, "While his wife is heartbroken, Ethan Price is already playing house with his childhood sweetheart. Some people have no shame." Millbrook scandal. Poor Natalie. How many views? I asked. Over 300, and it's been up for 20 minutes. In a town of 8,000 people, that was significant reach. By lunch, half of Millbrook would have seen it. I'm sorry, Ethan. I should have closed the curtains. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? I invited you over. I held your hand. You were being a friend. Tell that to the comments section. I scrolled through the comments. More of the same, plus a few new voices. Eric Dalton himself had weighed in. Some guys have no honor. Glad Nat is seeing him for what he really is. Rachel, are you okay with this? With being dragged into my mess? A pause. Are you asking if I regret having dinner with you? I guess I am. Then the answer is no. I don't regret it. And if Lucy wants to make me part of this story, then I guess I'm part of it. After I hung up, Tom looked at me expectantly. Well? Well, what? When do we start fighting back? I looked out the window at Main Street, watched people going about their daily routines. Some of them were probably talking about me right now, sharing opinions and judgments based on a few blurry photos and social media posts. Tonight, I said. We start tonight. I spent the afternoon working, trying to focus on client problems instead of my own, but every few minutes my phone would buzz with another notification. The story was spreading beyond Lucy's social media accounts now, picked up and amplified by other local gossips. At 5 o'clock, I drove to Natalie's design studio downtown. It was a small space she rented above the coffee shop, just big enough for her computer setup and a client meeting area. Her car was in the alley behind the building. I climbed the narrow stairs and knocked on her door. "It's open," she called. The studio was exactly as I remembered it. Clean, organized, full of natural light from the large windows facing east. Natalie sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen, but I could tell she wasn't working. "I figured you'd show up eventually," she said without turning around. "We need to talk." "Now you want to talk? Last night you couldn't wait to get away from me." I sat in the client chair across from her desk. "Last night you told me you were in love with another man. What exactly was I supposed to say?" She finally turned to face me. Her eyes were red. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, I couldn't tell. "You were supposed to fight for me." "Why?" "Because that's what husbands do when their wives are confused and scared and making mistakes." "Is that what this is? A mistake?" She looked away. "I don't know. Maybe. But you're still seeing him." "How do you—" She stopped, understanding. "Lucy told you." "Lucy's been very informative, so have her social media followers." Natalie's face flushed. "That wasn't my idea." "But you didn't stop it." "I was angry. You ran straight to Rachel like I didn't matter." "I had dinner with a friend." "You held her hand." "She was comforting me, like friends do when someone's world falls apart." Natalie stood up, paced to the window. "Everyone's talking about us." "That's what happens when you make private business public." "I didn't make anything public. Lucy just what? Accidentally followed us around town with a camera?" She turned back to me, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, looking for someone to tell her everything would be okay. "Ethan, I'm sorry. This got out of hand." "Which part? The affair or the social media campaign?" "It's not an affair. We're just talking." "About what?" "About us. About what we had in high school. About what might have been." I almost laughed. "You're 33 years old, Natalie. High school was half a lifetime ago." "But what if we made a mistake? What if we were meant to be together and we just got sidetracked?" "Then you got sidetracked for 15 years and 2 marriages. She flinched. "Oh, that's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up, feeling the anger I'd been suppressing finally break through. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation before you started sneaking around with Eric. Fair would have been giving our marriage a chance before you decided it was over. Fair would have been not turning our private problems into public entertainment. I never meant for it to go this far. But it has gone this far, so now what?" She sat back down, looking defeated. "I don't know." "Well, I do." I pulled out my phone, showed her Lucy's latest post. "As of this afternoon, I'm officially the villain in this story. The heartless husband who abandoned his grieving wife for his childhood sweetheart. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter. That's the narrative. And you know what? I'm okay with it." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if everyone already thinks I'm the bad guy, then I might as well act like it." I headed for the door, then stopped. "By the way, how's Eric's financial situation? Because from what I hear, Prince Charming might not be the catch you think he is." Her face went white. "How do you—" "I know lots of things, Natalie. I'm just getting started." I left her sitting there and drove home, my mind racing. The first phase was complete. Now it was time for phase 2. At home, I opened my laptop and started researching. Eric's business, his divorce, his financial problems, social media profiles, online reviews, public records. By the time I was done, I had a complete picture of the man my wife was leaving me for. Eric Dalton wasn't just broke. He was desperate. His garage was failing, his ex-wife had taken him to court twice for missed child support payments, and he'd been turned down for 3 different loans in the past 6 months. But the most interesting discovery was a series of photos on his Instagram account from last spring. Eric at various bars around town, always with a different woman, always looking drunk and handsy. The photos had stopped abruptly in June, right around the time his restraining order expired. I was still researching when my phone rang. Tom, you need to get down to Murphy's Tavern, now. Why? Because Eric's here, and he's been drinking, and he's telling anyone who'll listen what he's going to do to you when he sees you. Murphy's Tavern was the kind of place where locals went to drink beer and complain about their lives. Dark, smoky, and loud enough that you could have a private conversation in a crowd. Eric was holding court at the far end of the bar, surrounded by his usual crew of unemployed buddies and garage hangers-on. He was drunk enough to be loud, but not drunk enough to be incoherent. Thinks he's better than everyone else, he was saying as I walked in. Mr. College Boy with his fancy computer business, but he can't even keep his own wife happy. I ordered a beer and sat at the other end of the bar, close enough to hear but far enough away to avoid immediate confrontation. Tom appeared beside me a few minutes later. How long has he been at it? I asked. About an hour. Started with how Natalie deserves a real man, progressed to what a pathetic loser you are. Charming. Gets better. He's been showing people pictures of Natalie from high school, talking about their history. I looked down the bar. Eric was indeed holding his phone, showing the screen to his audience. Even from a distance, I could see it was an old photo of him and Natalie at some school dance. 15 years later, and he's still living in the past. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, Eric's voice got louder. And now he's running around with that Chinese girl like nothing happened. No respect for his wife, no respect for his marriage. Guy's got no honor. That did it. I stood up, walked over to where Eric was sitting. Evening, Eric? The conversation stopped. Eric turned to face me, his eyes glassy with alcohol and something that might have been fear. Well, look who decided to show up. I hear you've been talking about me. Just telling the truth, he gestured to his friends. About what kind of man abandons his wife the minute things get tough. I looked around the group. Most of them wouldn't meet my eyes. That's interesting, I said, because from where I stand, it looks like you're the one who came between a husband and wife. What does that make you? Eric stood up, swaying slightly. He was bigger than me, broader through the shoulders, but soft around the middle. Too many years of beer and bar food. Makes me the guy who's going to give Natalie what she needs. And what's that? A real man. The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, waiting to see what would happen. A real man, I repeated. Is that what you call someone who can't pay his bills? Someone who stalks his ex-wife? Someone who's about to lose his business? Eric's face darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone, opened the folder where I'd saved screenshots of his financial records. 4 months behind on your business loan, 3 months behind on child support. Your ex-wife had to get a restraining order because you wouldn't leave her alone. That's private information. Not anymore, it isn't. I held up my phone so the people around us could see. This is your real man, folks. A dad who's been lying to my wife about how successful he is. Eric lunged at me, but he was drunk and slow. I stepped aside easily, and he stumbled into a bar stool. Careful, Eric. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself. He straightened up, his face red with embarrassment and rage. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's not. I walked out of the bar, leaving Eric to explain himself to his suddenly less impressed audience. In the parking lot, Tom caught up with me. That was either really smart or really stupid. Probably both. So what's next? I looked back at the tavern, then at the lights of downtown Millbrook spread out below us. Now we take the gloves off. The next morning brought a new development. I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and Cheater spray-painted across the windshield in red letters. I called the police first, then Tom, then my insurance company. Officer Martinez took photos and a statement, but we both knew the chances of finding the culprit were slim. Any idea who might have done this? He asked. I have suspicions. Want to share them? Not without proof. Martinez nodded. He'd been a cop long enough to recognize the politics of a small-town divorce. Word of advice? Be careful. Things like this have a way of escalating. Tom arrived as the police car was pulling away, took one look at my truck, and whistled. Eric? That would be my guess. You going to report it? Already did. But Martinez is right. This is just the beginning. I called my insurance company to arrange for a rental car. then spent the morning working from home while waiting for the tow truck. Around noon, Rachel called. "I heard about your truck. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Pissed off, but fine." "This is because of last night, isn't it? What you said at Murphy's?" Word traveled fast in Millbrook. "Probably. Ethan, maybe you should back off. Let this whole thing cool down." "Can't do that." "Why not?" "Because backing down now means Eric wins, and I'm not going to let that happen." A pause. "What are you planning?" "Nothing illegal." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give you right now." After I hung up, I spent the afternoon researching Eric's business more thoroughly. Dalton Automotive had been struggling for months, but I found something interesting in the public records. Eric had applied for a city permit to expand his garage, claiming his business was growing rapidly and he needed more space. The application was dated 2 weeks ago, right around the time he'd started seeing Natalie again. I called the city planning office, spoke to a clerk who knew me from previous IT work. "Hey, Ethan, what can I do for you?" "I'm looking into a permit application for Dalton Automotive. Can you tell me what kind of financial documentation they provided?" "Hang on, let me pull that up." A pause. "Okay, here it is. They submitted profit and loss statements showing a 30% increase in revenue over the past year." 30%? That's what it says here? Interesting. According to the bank records Tom had pulled, Eric's business was failing. But according to his permit application, it was thriving. One of those things wasn't true. "Can you email me a copy of the application?" "I'm not supposed to, but you did fix my computer last month. Give me your email address." 20 minutes later, I had Eric's permit application, complete with forged financial statements. It was amateur work, clearly doctored in Photoshop by someone who didn't know what they were doing. I forwarded the documents to Tom with a note. "Can you verify these numbers against his actual bank records?" Tom called back within an hour. "The numbers are complete fiction. According to his real financials, his revenue is down 40% from last year." "So he's committed fraud." "Textbook case. Want me to report it to the city?" "Not yet. I want to talk to him first." That evening, I drove to Dalton Automotive in my rental car. The garage was closed, but Eric's truck was still in the parking lot. I found him in the back office, hunched over paperwork and looking stressed. "We need to talk," I said, walking in without knocking. He looked up, startled, then angry. "Get out of my shop." "Not until we have a conversation. I've got nothing to say to you." I sat down across from his desk, pulled out my phone, and showed him the permit application. Interesting reading, especially the financial statements. His face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Public records. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look." "Those numbers are accurate." "No, they're not. They're fraud. And I can prove it." Eric leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking older than his 36 years. "What do you want?" "I want you to leave my wife alone." "She doesn't want to be left alone. She wants to be with me." "Does she? Or does she want to be with the successful businessman you've been pretending to be?" "I am successful." "You're broke, Eric. Your business is failing, you're behind on child support, and you're about to lose everything. The only reason you're chasing Natalie is because you think she can save you." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I leaned forward. "Tell me, what did you tell her about your finances? Did you mention the foreclosure notice, the overdue loan payments, or did you let her think you were doing as well as these fake documents claim?" Eric's silence was answer enough. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to stop seeing Natalie. You're going to stay away from her, stop calling her, stop filling her head with fantasies about your high school romance. And if I don't, then I send these documents to the city planning office, the district attorney, and the IRS. How long do you think it'll take them to figure out you've been lying on loan applications too?" Eric stared at me for a long moment. "You bastard." "Maybe, but I'm a bastard who pays his bills and tells the truth about his finances." I stood up to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and Eric, if anything else happens to my property, I'll know where it came from, and next time I won't be so generous." I left him sitting there, staring at the evidence of his own desperation. Outside, I called Natalie. "We need to talk," I said when she answered. "I'm busy." "No, you're not. You're sitting in your studio staring at your computer wondering if you've made a terrible mistake." A pause. "How do you know that?" "Because I know you. Meet me at Riverside Park in 20 minutes. "Ethan, 20 minutes, Natalie. There are things you need to know about your boyfriend." Riverside Park sat on the banks of the Millbrook River, a small green space with walking trails and picnic tables. It was where Natalie and I had had our first official date, back when we were both young and stupid enough to think love conquered everything. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on our old bench, looking small and uncertain in the gathering dusk. "You look tired," I said, sitting beside her. "I haven't been sleeping well." "Guilty conscience?" She looked at me sharply. "I haven't done anything to feel guilty about." "Haven't you?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos from Eric's social media accounts. The bars, the women, the obvious drinking problem. "This is your Prince Charming from last spring, right up until June, when his ex-wife's restraining order expired." Natalie stared at the screen, her face growing pale. "Where did you get these?" "Instagram. He posted them himself." "These are old. He's changed." "Has he?" I swiped to the permit application. "What did he tell you about his business?" "That it's doing well, growing. He's thinking about expanding." "He's broke, Natalie. 4 months behind on his business loan, 3 months behind on child support. The bank is foreclosing on his garage." "That's not true." "It is true, and here's the proof." I showed her the financial records Tom had pulled. "Your successful businessman is about to lose everything." She stared at the documents, her hands shaking slightly. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you're my wife. Because despite everything, I don't want to see you get hurt by a man who's using you." "Using me?" "Think about it, Natalie. When did he first contact you?" "Right after his divorce was finalized and his business started failing." "When did he start talking about getting back together?" "Right around the time he needed money for his expansion permit." The color drained from her face. "You think he's after our money?" "I think he's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things." We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the river flow past in the darkness. "I feel so stupid," she said finally. "You're not stupid. You're lonely. There's a difference." "Are we really over, Ethan?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, and tried to find the answer to that question. "I don't know," I said honestly. "A week ago I would have said no, but now..." "Now?" "Now I don't know if we can come back from this." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences. What if I ended things with Eric? What if we tried counseling? Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore." My phone buzzed. Text message from Tom. "You need to see Lucy's latest post, now." I opened Instagram, found Lucy's account. The newest post was a video, apparently taken from across the street. It showed me entering Eric's garage earlier that evening. The caption read, "Ethan Price stalking and harassing Eric at his workplace. This man is becoming dangerous." Millbrook scandal. Sakshal. Stay strong. Natalie. "What is it?" Natalie asked. I showed her the post. "Your friend has been busy." "I didn't ask her to do this." "But you're not stopping her either." "I'll talk to her." "It's too late for that." I stood up. "The damage is done." "Where are you going?" "Home, to pack." "Pack? Where are you going?" "I'm moving out. This marriage is over, Natalie. We both know it." "But what about counseling? What about trying to work things out?" I looked down at her, sitting on the bench where we'd once planned our future together. "Some things can't be fixed," I said. "Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt." I left her there and drove home to start packing my life into boxes. But as I pulled into my driveway, I saw something that made me stop cold. Eric's truck was parked across the street, and he was sitting behind the wheel, watching my house. I parked in the garage, went inside, and called Tom. "Eric's outside my house." "Want me to come over?" "Yeah, and Tom, bring your camera." 20 minutes later, Tom arrived in his own truck, parking behind Eric's vehicle. I watched from my living room window as Tom got out and walked over to Eric's truck. The conversation was brief. Eric started his engine and drove away, but not before Tom got several clear photos of him and his license plate. "What did you say to him?" I asked when Tom came inside. I told him that sitting outside someone's house at night could be considered stalking, and that stalking was a crime. "Did he say anything?" He said he was just thinking. I suggested he do his thinking somewhere else." We spent the next hour packing my clothes and personal items. I wasn't sure where I was going to stay, but I knew I couldn't spend another night in this house. "You could crash at my place," Tom offered. "Thanks, but I think I need somewhere more permanent." My phone rang. "Rachel. I heard you're moving out. Word travels fast. It's a small town. Where are you going to go?" "I'm not sure yet. I have an empty guest cottage. It's yours if you want it." I looked around the living room at the furniture Natalie had chosen, the artwork she'd hung, the life we'd built together that was now falling apart. That would be great, I said. Thank you. Don't mention it. That's what friends are for. As Tom and I loaded the last of my boxes into his truck, I took one final look at the house. 8 years of marriage, reduced to a few cardboard boxes and a U-Haul receipt. But as we drove away, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. And I felt ready to finish what Eric had started. Rachel's guest cottage was perfect. Small but comfortable, with a kitchenette, a living area, and a bedroom overlooking the lake. It felt like a sanctuary after the emotional battlefield my house had become. I spent the weekend settling in and planning my next move. Eric had made this personal when he vandalized my truck and started stalking me. Now it was time to return the favor. Monday morning, I called the city planning office. I need to report fraudulent documents on a permit application, I told the clerk. Which application? Dalton Automotive. Permit number 2023-4471. What kind of fraud are we talking about? Falsified financial statements. The revenue figures are completely fabricated. How do you know this? I have access to the real financial records. The applicant is actually in default on multiple loans. I'll need you to come in and file a formal complaint. I'll be there this afternoon. Next, I called Eric's bank. I'd done IT work for them the previous year, and I still had contacts there. This is Ethan Price. I need to speak to someone about a fraudulent loan application. What kind of fraud? A business owner who's been submitting false financial statements to multiple lenders. By noon, I had filed complaints with the city, the bank, and the state attorney general's office. Eric's house of lies was about to come crashing down, but I wasn't done yet. I drove to the high school where Eric's ex-wife Susan worked as a secretary. I'd never met her, but I'd done enough research to know she was the real victim in Eric's pattern of deception. Mrs. Dalton, I'm Ethan Price. I wonder if I could speak with you for a few minutes. She was a small woman with tired eyes and graying hair. She looked at me suspiciously. You're Natalie's husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, yes. What do you want? I want to show you something. I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos of Eric with various women from his social media accounts. These were taken while he was supposed to be paying child support. Susan stared at the screen, her jaw tightening. He told the court he couldn't afford the payments because his business was struggling. His business is struggling, but that didn't stop him from spending money on bar tabs and dates. Why are you showing me this? Because Eric is trying to destroy my marriage, and I thought you should know what kind of man you're dealing with. I already know what kind of man he is. That's why I divorced him. Then maybe it's time he faced some consequences. Susan looked at the photos again, then back at me. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you take these photos to your lawyer. Show them to the family court judge. Let them see how Eric's been spending money while claiming poverty. You want me to take him back to court? I want you to get what you're owed, for you and your kids. Susan was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos. You really hate him, don't you? I hate what he's done to my marriage, but more than that, I hate bullies, and Eric is a bully. Yes, she said quietly. He is. That evening, I was having dinner at the cottage when my phone rang. Natalie. What did you do? She demanded. I'm going to need you to be more specific. Eric's been arrested. For what? Fraud. Something about his business permits. That's unfortunate. Don't play dumb, Ethan. I know you're behind this. I reported suspected fraud to the appropriate authorities. What they did with that information is up to them. His ex-wife is taking him back to court too. Also unfortunate. This is vindictive and cruel. No, Natalie. Vindictive and cruel was spray painting my truck. Vindictive and cruel was stalking me at my own house. I just gave Eric's victims the information they needed to protect themselves. He could go to jail. He should go to jail. He's a criminal. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you're defending him. A long pause. I'm filing for divorce, she said finally. Good. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. Just like that? Just like that. After she hung up, I sat on the cottage's small deck, looking out over the lake. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the stars like a mirror. My phone buzzed. Text from Tom. Heard about Eric. Nice work. Another buzz. Rachel. Are you okay? Another. My lawyer. Call me tomorrow. We need to discuss the divorce. I turned off the phone and sat in the silence, listening to the gentle lap of water against the shore. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and small-town gossip. Eric was charged with fraud and perjury, his garage was foreclosed on, and his ex-wife was awarded a significant increase in child support payments. Lucy's social media campaign shifted focus, now portraying Natalie as the victim of my vindictive crusade. But public opinion had turned. Too many people had seen Eric's true character exposed, and sympathy for Natalie was hard to find. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly smooth. Natalie wanted out as badly as I did, and we split our assets without much argument. She kept the house, I kept the business, and we both kept our dignity intact. I was working late at the office one evening when Rachel stopped by with Chinese takeout. "You look like you haven't eaten in days," she said, unpacking containers on my desk. "I've been busy." "Too busy to take care of yourself?" She was right. I'd been so focused on work and legal matters that I'd been neglecting everything else. "How are you holding up?" she asked as we ate. "Better than I expected. It feels like I can breathe again." "Any regrets?" I thought about that. "About the marriage ending?" "No, about the way it ended. Sometimes." "You did what you had to do." "Did I? Or did I just get revenge?" "Does it matter?" "I think it does." Rachel set down her chopsticks and looked at me seriously. "Ethan, Eric was a predator. He was using Natalie, lying to everyone and hurting his own children. You stopped him. That's not revenge. That's justice." "Maybe. Definitely." We finished dinner in comfortable silence, then Rachel helped me clean up. "Want to walk down to the lake?" she asked. It was a clear October night, crisp and full of stars. We walked down to the dock behind the cottage, our footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. "Remember when we were kids, and we used to come out here to look for shooting stars?" Rachel asked. "You always saw more than I did." "I was better at paying attention." "You still are." We stood at the end of the dock, looking out over the dark water. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called, its voice haunting and wild. "Ethan?" "Yeah? What happens now?" "Now I figure out what comes next." "Any ideas?" I looked at her, this woman who'd been my friend for most of my life, who'd stood by me through the worst period I'd ever experienced. "A few," I said. She smiled. "Good. You deserve to be happy." "So do you." "I am happy. Right here, right now, I'm happy." My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but old habits are strong. It was from Natalie. "The divorce papers are signed. I'm moving to Boston next week. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." I showed Rachel the message. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't know. What would I say?" "Whatever feels right." I thought about it for a long moment, then typed back, "I'm sorry too. I hope you find what you're looking for." Her response came quickly. "I think I already did. Thank you for letting me go." I put the phone away and looked back out over the lake. "Feel better?" Rachel asked. "Actually, yes." "Good. Now we can focus on the future." "We?" She took my hand, her fingers warm against mine. "If you want there to be a we." I thought about everything that had happened, everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained, the marriage that had ended, the friendship that had deepened, the possibilities that lay ahead. "Yeah," I said. "I want there to be a we." She squeezed my hand and leaned against my shoulder. "Then that's what we'll have." Above us, a shooting star streaked across the sky, bright and brief and beautiful. This time, we both saw it. 6 months later, I was working in my expanded office when Tom burst through the door. "You need to see this," he said, holding up his phone. It was a news article from the Boston Globe. Local woman charged in investment fraud scheme. The photo showed Natalie in handcuffs, being led into a courthouse. "She was running a fake graphic design business," Tom said, taking deposits from clients and never delivering the work. Stole over $200,000. I stared at the article, feeling a mixture of sadness and vindication. "I guess Eric wasn't the only one with a talent for deception," I said. "Guess not. You dodged a bullet, my friend." That evening, I told Rachel about the article over dinner at her cottage. "How do you feel about it?" she asked. "Sad, mostly, and grateful." "Grateful?" "That I found out who she really was before it was too late." Rachel reached across the table and took my hand. "Everything happens for a reason." "You think so?" "I know so. If your marriage hadn't ended, we wouldn't be here right now." She was right. The destruction of my marriage had led to the best thing that had ever happened to me. "I love you," I said. "I love you too." Later that night, as we sat on the dock watching the stars reflect in the still water, I thought about the price of goodbye, the pain of ending something that had once meant everything, the cost of discovering the truth about people you thought you knew, but sometimes the price of goodbye is exactly what you need to pay to find your way home, and I was finally home.